Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
Good morning and welcome to this week's National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. We have a very interesting guest again on our show, Mr. Lonnie Bidwell. If you missed last week's show, you missed a lot. But today we are talking to him about his journey. Last week we learned that he is a Navy veteran and that he comes from a small town here in Indiana. He is the father of 3 daughters, and an accident that happened in 1997 that took away his sight. But it did not take away his dreams, his adventure. This man's life has really exploded. And it's going in every direction. So what does a man do when he loses his sight? Let's talk again to Mr. Lonnie Bidwell. Again, welcome to our show, Lonnie.
Hello, thank you again.
Yeah, Lonnie, I have been so impressed with you. And one of the things that you have done, your trials, overcoming sight loss, and picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and going to triumphs in life. And we're going to kind of focus in on this show with motivation and some of the triumphs that you have overcome. So, and could you tell us a little bit about one of the things that you've done has become a motivational speaker. So what encouraged you to become a motivational speaker?
Quite frankly, a gentleman here in town, he knew all the things and the adventures I was doing. And he simply told me, he said, "You're one selfish son of a gun." And I'm like, "What?" He said, "You've been blessed with all this opportunity and to do an ability to do these things, and you should be sharing it." And that's truly what inspired me to do the speaking and all the other interviews and everything that I did.
So in your motivational speaking, what are some of the, a few of the topics that you cover?
Well, I truly get into what's possible, with to kind of paraphrase a little bit of the influence my kids had on picking me up, getting me going, making me realize I was still daddy, to, kind of letting it go with me and my buddy. So, we're still really good friends and still get out here and do things, to using a cowbell, a little bit of innovation with a cowbell to get me snow skiing and talk about adventures, climbing, mountaineering, where me and another gentleman who lost his eyesight in the war kind of visualize, just using our vision, to do things, to dream. And then those dreams taking me to doing some rock climbing and the trust that's involved with all of these things. And then getting into kayaking with all these other disabled veterans and the ability to just never give up, never quit. And you kind of wrap all those together and we can overcome adversity, how to overcome adversity, and to just focus on the gifts we still have, the gifts we were given, instead of dwelling on the past, and the ability that we have to just go out here and still have a positive influence in life and on others.
And this has all been totally blind.
It's all been totally blind.
Okay, and I tell you, we're going to take us a short pause, and we're going to talk about how you just picked yourself up, being totally blind, because I know it's a lot of disparity going through that transition, and how you have picked yourself up, and some of the great things that you kind of touched on. We're going to go into a little bit more in depth with that. So we'll be right back here on the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana show with our guest, Mr. Lonnie Bidwell. Stay tuned.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I use NFB Newsline when reading Hammond Northwest Times.
Using NFB Newsline, I read the Christian Science magazine.
Dad, you're regularly filling both too.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Live the life you want. Read NFB Newsline.
It's free. If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I am a CFP practitioner, and I happen to be blind. I rely on NFB Newsline to keep me current with Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Welcome back to this segment of the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana. We're speaking with Lonnie Bidwell. And Lonnie lost his sight in 1997, and he may have lost his sight, however, did not lose his dreams. And so, Lonnie, tell us a little bit more about what prompted you or what motivated you to become a motivational speaker.
Yeah, what really kind of put my feet back on the ground, if you will, was my daughters. And, I got a book out there. The title of the book is called 226 Mile Grand Canyon Adventure. And it cracks my dad up that I wrote a book that became an Amazon bestseller. But, and it's just a kind of a little quasi-autobiography about my life. But there's a story in that book where my daughter kind of helped me put my feet on the ground. And it's kind of amazing. While all these adults were telling me, no, 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 my daughters were like, go, go, go. You're still daddy, you can do this. And it started by mowing out here around the outbuildings in my pond. And then I, went and found a hammer and I started driving nails and smashing my fingers. And, I got a chainsaw and I was, cutting firewood again and clearing fence rows. But as I got better with the hammer and building things, I was sitting around the house one day and talking to my Aunt Donna, and she's telling me, they were building a brand new home, and this was back in 2004. And I told her, I said, man, I wish those guys would let me help them. I know I can do this. I know I can, even though I hadn't done any home construction or building before I lost my eyesight. Unbeknownst to me, for several years, she told them about me and said, hey, I want you guys to give him 2 weeks to come over here and try to work with you guys. And if it works out, he can help you until my house is finished. And if not, then he'll understand and I'll understand. Well, they told her, we can't do that. He's blind. There's no way, he's blind. We can't do that. And she turned around and told them, said, you guys don't understand. You will either give him 2 weeks to try, or I'm going to find someone else to finish building my home. And I ended up working with him for 14 years. I've helped build over 30 homes, do roofing, wiring, sheeting, you name it. Use all the saws, nail guns, you name it. It's just kind of amazing what can be done. Just if someone simply believes in you and gives you a chance.
Yes, sir.
And then from there, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just agreeing with you. I'm right with you.
It's just, but isn't that's all of us. Every one of us just wants someone to believe in us and give us a chance to prove what we can do. And that led into me when I finally went to a blind rehab center up in Chicago. They knew my story, and they asked me while I was up there. They had these younger veterans coming back from combat, who lost their eyesight, and they said, "Lonnie, we know blind people snow ski, but we've never done it here as a recreational outing. Will you be our guinea pig and try it?" I said, "Hey, if they can do it, we can do it." Twist my arm. So that led me to snow skiing. The snow skiing led me to just all these other adaptive sports, getting invited to do this and that. And I kind of viewed that as my new mission or duty assignment, is to let people know life doesn't stop when something bad happens. Blindness is a part of me, but it does not define me. And I truly believe I have more vision now than I did when I had eyesight.
Well, Lonnie, you went on to become an author, and you talked about being an author. Tell us a little bit more about your book there, 226.
Yeah, like I said, it starts out with me as a child and goes into my time in the service a little bit, and the accident in more detail, and the recovery, and kind of culminates with my first trip down the Grand Canyon. And the thing I really like about the book is the other voices, the people that they interviewed and put in there. And it's just kind of amazing to me that it actually happened and it worked,
Becoming, totally blind and through your recovery and as to where you are today. I mean, you've had so many different adventures, and I'm eager to hear you talk about your one of your blogs that you had there. That is a blog that's a Devil's Tower, summoning a 30-year vision. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, when I was in the service, I was stationed out in Idaho Falls, Idaho, going through nuclear power training. And as I drove back and forth across eastern Wyoming, back here to home in Indiana, I could see Devil's Tower off in the distance, which is our nation's first national monument. And I simply wondered if people climbed it, and if so, how they did it, and what it would feel like to be up there. And through all my travels, I had met a gentleman who was a world-renowned climber, and he said, "Well, hey, let's make that dream come true." And we set off to do that. And when we got to the base of the climb, I had to scramble up and over some rocks and boulders to get there. And he looked up, and it was about 800 vertical foot, something like that. And he kind of just went through the routines of, okay, make sure you properly know how to position your hands and clear the gear and do these moves. And then we started up. Every move I made, every step I took, inch by inch, I was painting this picture in my mind. And I guarantee that picture had much greater depth and detail than it would if it had happened 30 years earlier. And we did it. The only way, and I know you guys heard this. Helen Keller said the only thing worse than being blind is having eyesight with no vision. And then to add a little bit to that, though, vision is simply a dream unless you do something to turn it into reality. And,
Exactly.
yeah, I've just been blessed with the opportunity to turn a lot of it into reality.
Well, you most certainly have done that. And I tell you, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with some more of those turning dreams into reality and basically living the life you want. You haven't heard anything yet. So viewers and listeners, we'll be right back with some of the adventures of Mr. Lonnie Bidwell. Stay tuned.
I just graduated college as a blind student. How can I independently find job listings?
Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
It is a fantastic service.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we
I'm Danny Wayne Beamer, Program Manager of the Elder Blind Program at the Will Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I introduce the NFB Newsline to seniors in 13 southwestern counties in Indiana. I also utilize the NFB Newsline for my radio station public affairs shows. The NFB Newsline. Experience it today.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
Welcome back to this segment of the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana. And we're talking with Lonnie Bidwell and his adventures. We were talking about mountain climbing. So Lonnie, tell us a little bit more about your journey there.
Yeah, along with rock climbing, which is what Devil's Tower is rock climbing is vertical, where you're going vertical and you're roped up and catching each other, if you will, safety ropes. And mountaineering is more hiking up the big mountains and stuff. So along with rock climbing, I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, which is the highest peak in Africa, 19,341 feet. And then I've climbed Mount Aconcagua down in South America, Argentina-Chile border. It's the highest peak in the Western and Southern hemispheres at 22,841 feet. And it's a different ball game because it's a mental challenge to endure those steps and try to find the footing and just push on through the elevation. So I hope to continue with climbing the 7 summits. I plan on climbing Mount Denali in Alaska this next June. And if things work out right and we can pull funding together somehow, we're going to try Everest in 2023.
Man. So tell me, being totally blind, you're not allowing that to be an obstacle. I mean, I'm trying to imagine in my mind's eye just how you develop the technique, and do you have a sighted guide with most of this, instructors? I know they have instructors and everything. How does that work?
Yeah, with all of the adventures I do, I have a sighted guide with me. On the mountaineering, I simply follow the sound of their footsteps, or I might follow the sound of a bell, or stick out one of my trekking poles. I'm walking with a trekking pole in each hand for stability and balance, and while I'm searching for that footing. And they might grab one of my trekking poles and simply I'm following them along just by feel, or I might simply put my hand on their backpack and be able to feel how much they're stepping up or down. I just use feel and sound just like other people use eyesight to navigate.
Now, have you had an opportunity to get other people to go mountain climbing with you? What about the youth?
Yeah, I really have. I've been blessed with so much opportunity there and ability. Like on the Blind and Veterans Association, I'm on a committee called Operation Peer Support, where I've helped to work with other nonprofits to get people and veterans out there snow skiing, rock climbing, mountaineering, kayaking, biking, hiking, and the same thing with youth. I've got associated with some of the blind schools and just blind youth around to go out and encourage them to do all these things. I just did an event, quite honestly, in Pennsylvania, where we took kids ages 5 to 16, blind and visually impaired children and their families out, and we took them kayaking. And it not only did for those kids, but when their families could see what these kids were truly capable of, I think that's where it's going to truly benefit them.
Well, you're always bridging gaps of visible differences through all your activities. Now, talk to us a little bit about some of the highlights with your kayaking.
The kayaking I was introduced to in 2011, and I was asked how I'd simply like to be the first blind veteran to kayak the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon in my own kayak. And I actually happen to be the first blind person ever to do that. That's what the book is about, 226-mile Grand Canyon adventure. I've done it three more times now. Once with another blind gentleman who climbed Everest. Two other disabled veterans, one missing their legs and hands, and one with traumatic brain injury, PTSD. And the last trip, I was joined by 4 other veterans who lost their eyesight as a result of combat. It's taken me over to the Zambezi River in Africa. I'm the only blind person to kayak the Potomac Gorge section of that river just below Victoria Falls. I've kayaked the Gauley River and in West Virginia, which is some class 5 rapids. Just been all over the United States kayaking, and it's just been simply amazing. And the most independent thing I think I've ever done since losing my eyesight.
Wow. So what is kayak rolls? I see where you had a 1,000 kayak rolls. Could you explain that to me?
A kayak roll, or they call it an Eskimo roll or a combat roll. It's when you flip upside down in your kayak, then you use your paddle and a hip snap to flip yourself back upright. And cracks me up. I've been asked by people, well, since you can't see, how can you tell you're upside down? Like it's kind of hard to breathe underwater, man.
It's almost like, well, how do you bathe, and all that kind of craziness,
Yeah.
Wow. So I'll tell you briefly here, how many continents do you think you've been on?
Now I've been on 4 of the 7, and yeah, I have a goal to be on all 7, climbing, kayaking, doing something. Yeah.
So then you are making those dreams a reality. So what is on your agenda? What's coming up in the life of Lonnie Bidwell? Besides the Mount Everest, and what else is going on?
Well, like I said, Denali is the biggest thing next June, trying to do that and then see where that leads. But, I'm constantly out here doing presentations, talking to children at schools. I just did one yesterday at a local high school. And got some snow skiing events coming up with some blinded veterans, trying to coordinate some other stuff with disabled veterans in Indiana. A local nonprofit that I helped get going here in Indiana called Heroes New Hope Foundation. We've got some hunts coming up, deer hunts and turkey hunts and fishing events coming up to do that. Just going around doing speaking engagements and presentations. I love doing them now that I got started. I absolutely love to do them and hope to make a difference in somebody's life, a positive difference in somebody's life.
Well, I tell you, in conclusion, Lonnie, you are making differences in individuals' lives, and we just want to thank you, once again for coming onto our show. Do you have, any other parting words that you might want to leave our viewing and listening audience?
Yeah, how much time do I have? All of us, I don't care who you are, we're all disabled, if you will, in some shape, form, or fashion, not able to do things because it's just not our gifts. So the big key to me is to focus. Don't dwell on the things you can't do or what other people's can't. Just focus on the gifts you were giving and live a life. A crossroads in life is not a negative or a dead end. I've got my arms in an X space form. Roll it up. It's a positive. It's a plus sign. It's a place where you have choices. And get out there and do things. I've got an acronym for adversity. How you spell adversity? ADVERSITY. And the hardest part, just like the first step up a mountain or stroke through a rapid, the hardest part is acknowledging and accepting that there are differences and difficulties, no matter what it is. Hey, I'm blind. It stinks at times, but there's nothing I can do about it. But once you truly acknowledge it, then it gives you the power to do the VER. Visualize every route you can take in that crossroads. And then the S, what my daughters told me, the strength to stand up and step to where the ITY into you, your future, the things you can still do, the differences you can make, and the people you can influence. And no matter how big or how small it is, that's what you do. Acknowledge it first and then move forward.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Lonnie Bidwell. Thank you, Florence. And thank you, viewing and listening audience. This concludes our show with Mr. Lonnie Bidwell, and we will be having him back sooner than later before he has this adventure to go off into space and be the first blind person in the space, or encourage some young person to be there that is blind. So thank you once again. God bless you. And we'll be looking forward to hearing more about the adventures of Mr. Lonnie Bidwell. Take care, my brother. Okay. God bless.
With my failing eyesight, I'm not able to read regular newspapers, and I'm not able to keep up with obituaries.
I've been a homemaker all of my life, but since my vision has failed, I wish I could read my favorite magazines.
Have you heard of the NFB Newsline?
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
As I travel the nation, I read NFB Newsline.
I live in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I listen to my local news on NFB Newsline.
As a student, I enjoy reading current events on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
I'm going to sign off, you two. So again, Lonnie,
right.
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
So I'm going to let you go, my friend.
Thank you, Lee.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have a good one now.
The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.